Well, welcome to this morning's webinar. Today's topic, and we hear this all the time, there's a lot of this and a lot of that. Zillow has now, made some announcements that they're actually going to be entering into the real estate space. Not, in other words, they're going to be a real estate company rather than be a marketing company. So their new model is they're going to generate leads and sell them as referrals. so, um, so they're, that's their new model that's coming out. They'll be buying their iBuyer system is designed to generate seller leads. So think about that. You want to sell your home quickly, no hassles? Yeah, we'll buy it, quickly with no hassle. So, that's just going to generate a ton of seller leads, and then they're going to make an offer to buy it at a low price. And then if they don't want to do it, they got the lead that they could sell to an agent. So pretty smart, if you will. So that right there, so it creates a lot of panic. But think about it, still, what are they doing? Their lead generation. So the first question is, will technology replace the agent? Okay. The short answer is no. Okay. Now let's talk about why. Now the why is the long answer, but the short answer is simply no. And so you have to separate what technology can do to what it cannot do. Think about that. What can a machine do and what it cannot do, right? Technology replaces task, but it doesn't replace the individual agent. It replaces task. So, for example, sending emails, right? That's a task. It can send multiple emails, and do mail merging and stuff like that. That's a task. What else? Electronic signatures. That's a task. Right? That's really not about agents, excuse me. So, that's really across a bunch of industries, right? So, and then marketing tasks. But think about this, though. You could do marketing with technology, but what if your message is wrong? Right? If the message is wrong, then the technology the marketing didn't work, right? It doesn't matter how good your technology is if you have the wrong message. And the message is, is more of a human type of thing. You got to be able to figure out how to attract the emotions of human beings to contact you. And that's not technology. Now you can use technology to help you figure that out, right? Meaning, how do you do that? You take technology and you test marketing, right? So you do A/B testing, this color versus that color, things like that. So that's kind of technology, what tasks are done. Now let's look at a real estate transaction, right? So a real estate transaction is really not about task, right? Now there are tasks involved, right? You got to get the inspection, right? But what happens if there's something wrong in the inspection? And then, I've used the example where the inspector says, I found exposed electricity. It's very dangerous with the potential of death, right? So now that's going to freak a buyer out. However, but the reality is it's just a switch plate cover missing. So, depending on how it's presented, but what technology is not going to, calm the buyer down. You need a human being to get in there and control the emotions that are taking place during a transaction, right? So real estate transactions are more about emotions than they are tasks, right? People don't make, they don't, make logical decisions to buy a property. They don't. Now, they may think they do, but buyers make emotional decisions to buy a piece of property. When they walk in on, how many times have you shown them what is, a great transaction, a great deal? It's like, my gosh, this is the deal. But they're like, we don't like it, and what is it about they don't like, and they'll like kind of throw something out at you, like, well, I'm not sure, and so there's some kind of emotion taking place when that happens, right? Who knows what it could be? They could have been dumped by somebody in high school that had similar decor in the house, right? And they could have had the same couch set or whatever, right? It doesn't matter what it is, but the buyer, it hit it hit an emotion for that particular buyer, even though the deal from a logical perspective made way more sense. Then they go out and they buy a house that whatever, for whatever reason, they love it. And you're sitting there going, man, that other house was a way better deal. Our job is not to get hung up on whether it was a better deal. Our job is to figure out what they like and then just make sure they don't get hurt in the transaction. It's just that simple, right? It's their job to like it, and it's our job to protect them, make sure they don't rip with scissors. But then what happens is they make an emotional decision, and then in their mind they justify it, and then to justify it, they justify it to become a rational decision. But be clear that they made an emotional decision, and then somehow they'll rationalize it. Whatever, they'll come up with ways to rationalize it. So here's another thing technology can't manage, right? So have you ever had a difficult transaction, right? Show of hands. Yeah, I mean, every hand is up. Transactions can be, they can be difficult. They can, and most times the difficulty comes from irrational or emotional decision-making process from the buyer and the seller, and sometimes the emotion and irrational behavior of the agent involved. Right? They make the transaction difficult. Right? I hear like a hump back there. Yeah. I mean, that happens all the time. Have you ever had situations, like let's say you get a laundry list, of repairs. Now the buyer's freaked out, then okay, because they see this laundry list of all these minor things, and then you add it up and go, look, it's a $500 repair if you add them all up, which congratulations, you bought a used home and only needs $500 worth of work. In my opinion, any house that needs less than $5,000 is heading in the right direction. Right? But no technology is going to solve that problem. Right? So, and then think about it. And then what about buyers? They have, they need to make finance decisions, right? And that could be based on their down payment, their credit score, their ratios. Just there's a myriad of things that could be combined to help them make the best decision. A buyer just starts out with the rate. Well, but they don't always get it, and then you have to navigate them through it. But their emotions, and then they got people whispering in their ear, and no application is going to fix that. It's just not. Then there's problems in the transaction. The appraisal comes in a little light. There's too many repair items. How do you navigate that? Who's going to fix that? And the way it gets fixed is two professionals who sit down and go, okay, let's work towards getting this problem solved. Right? So that's what's going on there, right? So, I mean, think about one of your challenging transactions and then ask yourself, could an application have solved the problem? And the answer is no. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So let's talk about what about the big tech firms, the big marketing firms with billion-dollar budgets, right, that are going to take over the business. Well, what they're doing, they're not taking over the transaction. They're staying away from the transaction. What they're doing is selling you the business. They're selling you leads. And they've always been in the lead generation business. However, they're shifting their payment model. Rather than selling people's zip codes, they're going to sell referrals. And so they're going to make more money per transaction. So rather than getting, say, $1,000 a month from a zip code, what if they gave an agent 3 deals and they made $2,500 a deal? So now they're getting, considerably more money. So anyway, so that's what the big boys are doing. So they're generating leads to sell to agents, right? So the key phrase there is they're going to sell them to agents, right? Even the big giant tech firms are clear that the agent is a vital portion of the transaction. They're not trying to eliminate the agent. They're just trying to get in the agent's pocket. That's what they're doing, right? And right now it works. We're in what we call a low skill, what I call low skill market, a no or low skill, right? So no skill or low skill, right? And what do I mean by that? So let's talk about that. What is required to sell a listing? If you took a listing today, right, there was a decent home priced, realistically, and you went out and you got run over by a dump truck, the listing's still going to sell. It's just going to sell. Right? And why is that? Because of the condition of the market. Right? For those of you that were around in 2008, 9, 10, and 11, that was not the case. I mean, people were signing 1-year listing contracts. That's the way it was. I mean, there were short sales that could take, 9 months from the date of purchase contract to closing. I mean, and that's a high skill market to get that stuff done. And no application is going to manage that. Let's look at pricing, right? Excuse me. So anyway, what is the first thing you learn about appraising? Appraising is an art, not a science, right? Think about that. Where software cannot bring the art into the equation. It can bring in the science. So, and then the artist uses the science to help them quickly calculate things rather than, doing it by pencil and paper. So there's the science, but the science is in the hands of an artist. Think about that, right? Let's talk about something real quick. So talk about a property. Let's say, I always use the example 701 Kensington Avenue versus, say, 799 Kensington Avenue, right? If you had two houses, they were both identical. They're brand new. They haven't been lived in yet. They both just got their certificate of occupancy today. They are identical in every way. The doors face the same way. The flows on the same side. The color scheme's identical. They're identical in every way, but one is 701 Kensington and the other one's 799 Kensington. Are they worth the same amount of money? And the answer is no. Why? But according to science, it is. Right? But the artist understands that one of them is on the corner of 700 East and the other one's on the corner of 800 East. And they're two different streets. One of them, 700 East is, like 7, 8, 9 lanes, where 800 East is just, doesn't even have lines in the road. And, it's a beautiful tree-lined street. So, but that's the artist. But the science doesn't account for that type of knowledge that an artist can know, right? So the science can't even do the software can't even do the basic pricing of a property, which is what a seller needs, right? What a seller wants is, we'll talk about that in a second. So think about that, right? So far, what has the science done for us? What has technology done for us? It has done some task. It has helped us send out emails efficiently, but if the email message is incorrect, that it takes a human being to create, then it's no good, right? It can't price a property properly. It can get signatures, things like that, right? So that I hope you're starting to see the difference of what technology does versus what an agent does. An agent manages the human factor. Right? If you got people, but I gotta have more money, I gotta sell my house, that kind of stuff, and that, and the software is not going to manage those sellers, right? It's not going to it's just not going to. So we talked about, if you had a good listing and what is it to be a good listing, right? The contract and the correct price. So think about that, right? So this is not new. So where we're at today happens every seller's market. For those that have been around long enough to know that every seller's market. So in the previous seller's market, we had companies like Zip Realty. They were a technology-based company that generated leads, and they had buyer's agents servicing the leads. They did fairly well. They developed great technology for generating and managing leads. They had the great technology. But soon as the market went to a buyer's market, and then it was skill required, they were out of business. And then what happened is, I believe it's Realogy bought the technology. So, so at the end of the day, they were a technology company. They were no longer a real estate company. They were a real estate company when there was no to low skills required, and their technology shined. So then what happened was an actual real estate company bought the software from them, so that they're generating and managing leads for a giant, international conglomerate. So that was the value. I mean, y'all heard of Help You Sell, right? They were big during the seller's market, right? I don't know if I've seen any of those around recently, but now we have new versions of it, right? So we have the technology companies out there that came into the business. Oh, we're going to do this better, and they're thriving right now because of the condition of the market. But when you get a shift in the market, and a lot of these companies are going bye bye. They're just going bye-bye. They don't know yet, and they're cocky, and they're like, we got a better way. Even Redfin has, during the previous seller's market, 05, 6, and 7, they were cocky. They were going to revolutionize the world. The market shifted, and they had a choice. They had to either shift the way they did things. They had to change their business model, and they went to a more traditional business model to survive. The only reason why they survived, well, they survived for two reasons. One is they switched their model to the same model that they were bashing in a seller's market, and then also they're surviving because of venture capitalists. I don't know that they've ever been profitable. I don't think they have been. So these new create a new mousetrap technology companies, the new and improved mousetrap. This is not new. They're just, a seller's market hides weaknesses, and a buyer's market exposes weaknesses. Note also, a buyer's market exposes too much overhead. So some of these companies are going to be riddled with overhead that they don't need, that aren't generating business. And they're going to pay dearly for it. If they don't go out of business, it's going to hurt them bad. So anyway, so what I call technology-heavy models, or not any non-sales models, right, for that matter, thrive in the seller's market, which is what I've been saying, and they all disappear when the market shifts. So what happened in the mid-'90s, right? The mid-'90s was when the listings started to go online. So we went from the book to all the listings were online. So at first, when we stopped using the books, the listings weren't online. You had to be an agent, and you actually had a dial-up modem computer that dialed in to the MLS, and the MLS was, each board of realtors had their own MLS. So Salt Lake had their own, UCAR had their own, Northern Wasatch had their own. That kind of stuff. So every board had their own, and you dialed into their computer. And then, and then after that, that was the first step in the evolution. The next step was, it became a web-based model where, rather than dialing into a mainframe, you accessed a portal via the internet, right? So you went online with your and got a web browser and accessed the server to access the data. Well, then then you started having mergers. Now you have UtahRealEstate.com. Well, in the mid-'90s, it was the whole thing. We're all going to go away. The listings are online. At that time, the perception of the value of a real estate agent by the general public anyway was that we had all the listings. That once they had the listings too, then they weren't going to need an agent anymore. Well, that what happened. We all know that. We all know what happened there. That's, let's say, 1995-ish. So fast forward, right? Whatever that is, where we're at, 25 years, 20 years. And we know that that didn't happen. We know that the agent wasn't replaced by a website. So think about it. So we didn't get replaced when the listings went online. So why? Because we still have, they still want a human being to guide them through the process. So let's think about that, right? So all the listings are online, right? All the listings are online. So, and they're on many, many, many websites. It's not like they're just one location. I mean, you got just the big boys. You got Realtor.com. You got UtahRealEstate.com. Every agent on this phone call, my guess, has their own IDX site where a consumer can search all the listings, right? They can search the MLS. And so every brokerage has one. Just about every agent has one, right? But think about that. So every agent has one. Every broker has one. The big giant companies have them. So, but think about this. I'm going to ask you a question. And so you can either text the answer if you're on mute, or you can just, if you're not, just go ahead, unmute yourself and say the answer. But what is the number one thing a buyer wants from an agent? Think about that. What do you think the answer to that is? What is the number one thing a buyer wants from an agent? Anybody?
Service.
Communication.
Yep. Those are yes, but they're not even in the top 5. What do you think? I mean, I guess. So Amy texted and said direction and handle the paperwork. Yes. So paperwork was in. So somebody's calling me. So paperwork was in I think in the top 5. The number one thing a buyer wants from an agent, believe it or not, is to help find the right house. Think about that. All the listings are online. How you can? I mean, they literally, just in the Salt Lake market, there's probably 2,000 websites that can show them all the listings. But yet, the number one thing a buyer wants from an agent is to help find the right house. Now, isn't that interesting? I mean, do you find that interesting? I do. Why? Because the psychology reason, my belief is because they start off with their wish list, but usually their wish list doesn't exist in their price range. Now what? So then it takes a skilled professional to start showing them houses that they can afford in their price range, and putting them in. How many times have you ever had an agent say, "No, I don't want that kind of style house"? You bring them in, and they're like, "Hey, this is nice," right? Because it happened to be. It just met everything they need, but they're like, they got to have a Rambler, and then they buy a split entry. So, but I find that very, very interesting. So the second most important thing that a buyer wants from an agent is to help negotiate the terms, right? So 52% of buyers said they want help to find the right house. 12% said they want help negotiating the terms, and 11% said they want help negotiating the price, right? So if you add that up, what's that come out to be? 75% of what a buyer wants from an agent is to help find the right house and make sure they get a good deal. That's it. And not even really a good deal. They just want a fair deal. They just don't want to be taken advantage of. So 75% of what a buyer. Now, all the forms are online. They can go get them anywhere. They can email 1,000 agents, and 800 of them will send them the forms, right? So, but the forms are on the division's website, right? The purchase contracts on the division site free of charge, right? So they have that, so they can negotiate that. They can negotiate the terms. All the terms are built into the contract. The price is there. So all that information is there, right? So anyway, so you have all that information, right? So 75%. Now a little side note, that's your marketing message, right? So think about it. If you're marketing to a buyer, your message should be, we'll help you find the right house and make sure you get a good deal. because that's what that's what a buyer's saying they want. Now they may not know that up front, but if they searched around a little bit, that message is going to resonate. And then what a seller wants, think about what a seller wants, like 20-something% of what a seller wants is they want help marketing the property, right? They want help marketing the property. And then and then the next one is they want help to one of the items they want is they want help knowing what repairs to make the house more sellable. And no application is going to do that. And then we talked about marketing, right? Now, technology, we do marketing via technology, but we all have the same access to the same technology as agents, but yet some agents do a better job at it. Why is that? So it's not the technology that's doing the marketing, right? It's the paintbrush in the hands of an artist that's doing the difference. It's making a difference, right? We all have the MLS. We all have the same tools or access to the same tools, but it's not the technology that's doing it. It's the agent that's doing it, the highly skilled agent. So think about that, right? Any thoughts on that? I mean, does that shock you that 52% of what a buyer wants from an agent is to help find the right house, and when all of the listings are online? I mean, what do you think about that statement? So nobody's got any thoughts on it. All right, that's fine. Anyway, but I just find that very, very interesting that the fact that they have all the data, but they want help figuring it out. It's really what it boils down to. So Amy says true for first-time buyers. Actually, it's true for all buyers. Let me pull up the report. So here's the seller's report. Helps market the home 21%. Helps sell within a specific time frame, right? And then 19% was to price the home competitively. 16 is how to fix it up. So if you add these all up, right, 41, 60, 76% are in these top four. And then 89% are in the top five, right? Help find the right home. So let me get back to page, I think it was 77, right? So here it is. So here's the page for buyers, right? And it says 52% is all buyers. Believe it or not, 51% was first-time buyers. Repeat buyers was 52%, which is higher than first time. And then you had new homes was 54%. Than previously, so it comes out to be all buyers, 52%, not just first-time buyers. In fact, first-time buyers are 1% less, which I found that to be interesting. And my guess is that first-time buyers are more apt to be online a lot more. So, and take remember the old Bonjour commercial? I'm dating a French supermodel and this dorky dude shows up. It's got to be true if it's on the internet type thing. So I think just the younger people are more apt to put more weight on the web than somebody that's a little older and takes the advice of an agent. So, I mean, that's my guess, but I mean, it's so small, it doesn't matter in my opinion. Right. So negotiate the terms of the sale and the price negotiate, and then paperwork was number 4. Determining what comparable homes are selling for is number 5. And then, pre-qualifying is, it's not, we're getting down in all the single digits, right? Teach a buyer more about neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. They just don't need help with that. So, but interesting stats, don't you think? Especially since this one just baffles me. Well, I mean, actually it does. I mean, I kind of understand it from, I understand it better than I can articulate why. So anyway, and then we went back to the sellers. Let's go back to the sellers, 128, right? So by the way, this document is put every year, late October, early November, by the National Association of Realtors. It's called the Home Buyer and Seller survey or whatever it's called. So, and it's what 166-page document of all surveys done from home buyers and sellers throughout the course of a year. So it's very powerful information if you know sit down and read through it. So, here's what it's called: 2019 Profile of Home Buyers and Sellers. So that's what it's called, and it's broken down into so it's here, you know, characteristics of a home buyer, home purchase, the home search process that goes in, a bunch of that, home buying and real estate professional, all the way down. It gives you the methodology of the research and list of exhibits, blah, blah, blah. So it's a very, very powerful document. It costs $20. I mean, I'm more than happy to, you know, let you look at it for sure. So, but anyway, anybody have any questions about this? Does anybody have any doubt that, you know, I hope I convinced you that, you know, if you had this idea that technology was going to replace you, I hope I've convinced you that you're not going to be. One, just be from the emotional aspect, and two, the billion-dollar budget companies are not trying to replace you; they're trying to get into your pocket. That should be your biggest clue right there. As companies with, you know, Wall Street money have come to realize that you know, they're not going to replace you, but they just want your money. Microsoft in the mid 90s, early to mid 90s, got involved in real estate, and after a few years and many millions of dollars of spending their own money, that's the difference between Microsoft and some of these other companies, is Microsoft spent their own money, but they came to the realization that real estate is an offline transaction and got out. So think about it. If there were if you could be replaced with technology, then the Microsofts of the world, the Apples of the world, and the Googles of the world, they would be in the real estate space, because the commissions that are generated every year are like $50 billion, 50 billion with a B. I mean, annual revenue. So when you have that kind of revenue, I mean, you have, you know, the companies like Google and Microsoft, they're all over it if it could be done. But they've come, you know, but you don't see them in the space because they realize it can't be done. They're not going to replace you. So, so that's the message. You're not going to be replaced. But in a seller's market, you're going to have companies come in and pick your pockets, and that's just the way it is. And then, so that just means you got to work harder in a seller's market. That's all there is to it. So, and if you, any questions, thoughts, concerns, hallucinations? So this is being recorded. If you want to go back and listen to it again, I'll send you my notes if you want to view those. They're just notes, pretty much what I said. Anyway, anybody have any questions? If not, I'll go ahead and end the call. So going once, going twice, and we're going to stop the recording.